everybody. I'm Natalie Diaz, person at Twiniversity, and that is Lauren Oak, also person at Twiniversity.
Hello.
We are shaping this generic recording of our introductions because we forget to introduce ourselves all the time. I'm Lauren, who are you and why do we care?
Oh, I'm Lauren Oak. I am a postpartum doula, a lactation counselor, a gentle sleep coach, mother of twins, plus two more, plus grandmother.
Ugh. And still bikini wearing babe.
Yes, thanks to that doctor.
Hello. I am Nat, and if you don't know, I don't know. I don't even know what you're doing. Like, I've done a bad job if you don't know who I am, but I'm still around. I keep kicking, man. They can't hold me down.
No, they keep kicking you down and you still keep getting up.
I do. I get right back up. That's how I do it. And I love taping our podcast. It's great. So yeah, we're going to tell you a little bit about our guest today. So yeah, get ready. Stop the presses.
Stop.
You're ready for a Twiniversity podcast first?
Of course.
This is, I believe, if memory serves me correct, maybe I'm wrong. This is the first two-part episode that we have ever had on our Twiniversity podcast.
Why is it two parts? Is it just that good that you needed it to be two parts?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So this podcast is with Jen, a twin mama, and Triest, her gestational carrier.
Oh.
See?
A surrogate.
Yeah, no.
No?
Not a surrogate, a gestational carrier.
Also, wait.
Go on. I'll give you a second.
What's the difference between a surrogate and a gestational carrier?
A surrogate, and you're going to hear this in the episode, and so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is it. A surrogate is somebody that has a biological component
I thought
to a fetus, where a gestational carrier is entirely genetically the parents' spermy and eggy, and then the carrier, that's all that she's doing is carrying them.
Oh, I thought a surrogate could be considered that.
I did too. And
so this is educational for me too.
It is. But Lauren, like, for real, like, I'm not saying I don't know things, but I had no idea that there was a difference of the two.
Me either.
I had always been using them like as
like the same thing, like
No.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I really was very, very, very shocked.
That's interesting
to find that out. And what I loved, this whole thing of how it came to be, it was lined up in the stars because we've talked about us not delivering, our babies with the doctors that we knew.
Mm-hmm.
But this was that she had a gestational carrier that wasn't the original person.
Oh, there was someone else lined up.
Fascinating. Absolutely level 10. Grab your snacks and you are absolutely going to love this. I had to, this podcast, like, we were talking and I found the episode so fascinating. Now, for the record, I'll say that it is two guests. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody had their say. Okay. So I guess that, like, technically it could have been two episodes anyway, but
I want to hear this.
No, it's really, really fantastic. Honestly, Lauren, I think truthfully, not only should every parent of twins listen to this and really learn the differences, like we said, of gestational carrier and surrogate, but in general, I think the whole process is just riveting. And there are questions, like, before I ever start taping podcasts with the guest, I always say, is there anything I can't talk about?
Okay.
And there have been plenty, like, usually people say, no, I'm an open book, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, there's been times where people are like, call me after the episode record and they're like, listen, I really don't want that aired publicly.
Okay.
And I said, sure. Like, and we edited and we make sure that we're respectful and we got
Yep.
to think about people's 20s, not only about but their 20s,
Yep.
they get big. But this was an episode, and so the point of me saying that is I literally ask everything I want to. And I know that fans of the podcast in general enjoy that
Yeah.
because I don't hold back. So I
Well,
wanted
you're
to
real.
know things totally, but like Lauren, come on, you're not fascinated to know, like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, Triest, after the babies were born, weren't you like, I want to keep them?
Or something. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. So just asking those questions, and truthfully, there was a piece of me that was afraid to ask them because I didn't want to be like offensive to Jen, and I wanted to be sensitive to Trias.
yeah.
So yeah, you absolutely have to listen to this. So no, we're not talking anymore. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, here she is. Oh, here they are, I should say. Gang, hold on to your bloomers. We got an extra awesome episode today. So we are talking with Triest and Jen, and they are a family that had their babies via surrogate. Triest is the surrogate, Jen is the mama bear, and this is a relationship that I really always wanted to kind of have covered on this podcast. We actually have it covered at length on Twiniversity because I don't think you guys had any idea how common it is to use a surrogate. And sometimes I have been lucky enough to have conversations with our surrogate families. And one of the first things mamas say to me is they say that, are we really welcome there? Are we really a twin mom? And I'm like, what is wrong with you? And at what point did you think that you weren't or that you're not part of this community? So it basically frustrates me a lot that people of any kind of, I don't want to say a fringe group because I think that word has negative connotations. I get pretty frustrated when my surrogate families feel like they're not a part of our Twiniversity community. But that's like any group. That is my dad families, my mom families, my families that ended up going through IVF and adopting and then having babies at the same time. Like any type of twin family, if you have kids that are within a few days or months of each other, welcome to our world.
Right.
I don't want to issue a special invitation because I think you should know you're a part of it, but I guess I have to. And so welcome all surrogate families in the world officially. And I'm so stoked to talk to you guys because I know that the surrogate relationship is something that's so beautiful and real. And I typically know it very well from my dad families.
Okay.
So
yes.
at my dad families, of course, the whole, not even having any option other than using a surrogate or adopting, they have such beautiful relationships that continue years and years and years. And so now here we are sitting in this virtual room, and I got Jen, who's got her 6-year-old puppies that are going to be 7 in September. And yes, it happens that fast. And Triest, that's still part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
I love this. So Triest, I would love to start with you and just tell me, how the heck did you get started and know that you wanted to become a gestational surrogate? And what was that first conversation? Was it something you read online? Where did the spark occur that ignited your whole surrogate journey?
I have this vivid memory. I was a teenager. I was like probably 15. I was sitting in my doctor's office just doing like a regular checkup and like a well check or something. And there was a magazine on the table next to me. And it was I don't know, some big headliner magazine, not just some obscure like medical journal. It was it was and it said surrogacy on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I think I've heard that word before, but what's going on? So I'm waiting I'm in the waiting room, and I pick it up, open to this story, this cover story, and it's talking all about surrogacy. And just in the few minutes that I was reading that magazine, I remember having this feeling of just like clarity of just like, I remember saying to myself, I want to do that. I want to do that one day. If I have an opportunity, I want to do that someday. And fast forward 15, 16 years, and my husband and I, we had recently lost our third little boy. He was born too early, and he died during delivery. And I remember saying to my husband, between the week that he passed and that we buried him, I had this overwhelming feeling of I still get to come home to two boys. Like I have this 3-year-old and I have a 15-month-old, and I still get to come home to these boys. And I can't imagine the feeling of loss that we have. I can't imagine what it would be like to not know not only the pain of losing children, whether that's embryos, whether that's never being able to create a baby, whether, however loss is felt.
Yeah.
I said, we've been able to know the joy part of that as well. And I can't imagine what it would be like, the void that we feel after losing this baby. And then shortly after that, I mean, it was within probably a few months, I ran into a friend. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm a Southern girl, and we're now living in Utah. And I run into a friend of mine at the grocery store. She and I grew up together in Virginia. Here we are in Utah. We get to talking, and we reconnected. We had kids around the same age. And as we start hanging out one day, she was like, hey, have you ever heard of do you know what a gestational carrier is? And I was like, it's so funny that you say that, because I have literally been looking in the last few weeks. I've been looking into that. Just the whole kit and caboodle, just how that whole thing works, because we lived in a town where they were just starting to build the Utah Fertility Center. And I passed it every day, going every time I would go out to the freeway. It was like literally a mile from our house, from where we were living. And so that's what got me going on the gestational surrogacy thing anyway, because I was like, what do they do at the Utah Fertility Center?
Yeah.
What is that all about? And so for her, just within weeks of me starting to look into things, she was like, have you ever heard of? Well, she was in the process of becoming a carrier for another family, and was about to start her journey. And I was able to follow that whole thing. And I was completely just absorbed. I was so just watching everything. I was asking her all the questions, and and in the meantime, we had gotten pregnant with our fourth boy.
Wow.
He was a bit of a surprise, not a surprise, but not necessarily in what we thought was going to be our timing.
Okay.
So I had our fourth little boy all while watching this friend of ours. Her name's Robin, and I was watching Robin go through this whole journey, and I thought, I need to do this. The morning that I opened my Instagram, and she had the baby that morning, and I was sitting there looking at this, and I had chills all over my body, and it was like I had my brain saying to me, you're going to do this. You will do this. And I thought, because I don't have anything else going on right now with,
right?
3 little boys.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it all got started. But I don't know how much I should go into, because Jen becomes an integral part of that because of Robin.
Okay.
It was the craziest thing, because without even knowing Triest yet, I was watching, because I started really researching and looking into this, once we got to this point of our journey of like, this is where we're going to be heading. I started just like, on Instagram, following on the blogs, just like watching people's stories and just like seeing how, and I fell into Robin's story, and I watched the whole thing and was like, I think this is like something that I want to do. And I said, I think this is like where we're supposed to be. And I want something. And then out of nowhere, like after she had that sweet little boy for the other family, one morning I just got like, I'm going to message her. And I just like did it. And I messaged her, and she's just like fresh out of like, and it was just to say, you are amazing. And I hope that I find someone like you to help me in my journey. I'm like, cause I just thought she was just incredible. And I loved their relationship as well. I just was like, cause that's how I am. Like, cause I know some people, and I respect it, are very business and contract. They don't want to do that, but I am like, absolutely not. Like I imprint immediately. I fall in love. Like, you're going to be my person. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing. And so I just messaged her, and she actually messaged me back, because she was like, thank you so much, that, like just so kind. And I just was like, just thank you for doing that for her family. And she messaged me like 2 weeks later. She's like, for some reason, she's like, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. And she's just like, I know this is so crazy, but she's like, I would consider helping you. And I was like, are you serious? Like, seriously?
Well, she just had the baby. So you're like,
for real. I'm like, are you is this like, you know what I mean? And I'm like panicked. And anyways, we started like having these conversations through social media. And then she was like, do you want to actually have like a real phone call? And I was like, absolutely. And then we started talking. And before I even knew it, my husband had a trip planned out to Utah for my birthday, and that's where she lived. And it was like, he's like, we're going to Utah. Do you want to go meet her? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And we went and met, and I was just like, she's like, I want to do this. And we started the whole process. And, I'm fast forwarding, but like, there's all these things. There's like the contracts, and then there's the IVF, and then there's the making of the embryos, and there's, all the things.
I need to interject really quick because between Robin having that baby and Jen reaching out to her, I had talked with her, and because we ended up living like 3 miles apart.
That's unbelievable.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And
I'm so sorry.
And so I was talking to her, and I'm like, how are you feeling? How are things? How's the baby? Just outside of the Instagram view, and she does not enjoy being pregnant. And she told me, she was like, do not ever let me do that again. Those were her exact words. Do not ever let me do that again. She was like, I am done. She had her 3 kids pretty quickly. And she was like, I don't ever want to do that again. I'm never doing that again. So I'm just going to slide that in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Between when she had that baby and when she reaches out to Jen, and Jen comes to Utah, and Jen meets her. And
I love this story.
And we just like, and we had like a great relation. Like, it was good. We were like talking, and she was like, I don't know why. And she said, I don't know why I'm saying that I want to do this, but she's like, I want to do this. And I was, and I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, let's rock and roll. Cause I was so ready. And
so how did you get to that point? Like, what was your journey before you even had serious conversations about surrogacy?
So I did carry my oldest son, but I got very sick, and I almost died with him. So I became pre-eclamptic, and then I became eclamptic, and I started to like stroke out and seize. Okay. And I was, in like a magnesium coma for a few days, and it got very serious, and I ended up having some like kidney issues, and I still have some high blood pressure. And I also have 2 autoimmune diseases that got, I don't know. I'm sorry if I even get emotional now. I'm like, now I'm feeling, okay, sorry.
Well, the thing is like, honestly, anytime you think about that,
yeah,
it is emotional.
It was emotional.
And Jen, honestly, that's some freaking trauma, man.
It was
like
some
going
trauma
through that, and that whole thing. Like I have chills now, like even thinking about it, because I think you're pretty typical that I don't even know. I don't know if we ever heal from that, for the record.
No, honestly, it was pretty
it's
traumatic. I mean, honestly, thank heavens for pharmaceuticals and therapy, because
truth.
I don't know, like it is just very traumatic. And it was, but I got to a place though, I had my beautiful baby boy. I was so grateful. You know, I was grateful that I was even able to have a child, and that, you know, but I never felt complete ever. Never, never, never. But you kind of coast and you get through it. And then I fell into like a pretty bad depression, because I wanted to grow my family. And I knew that my reproductive system, everything else in my body, no bueno, but my reproductive system is pretty, I mean, it was great. And so I didn't have any issues with that. And so it was just kind of frustrating for me, you know. We looked into foster care. We became certified foster parents. We looked into adoption. My grandmother on my mother's side is adopted, and that's always been in my heart, and something that I have always taken very seriously. And I was like, this is, you know, and I was like, we're supposed to adopt, and this is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But when you start looking into everything, and unfortunately, cost plays a huge role in these journeys. It's just that is how it goes. And so when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending, you know, like, we just had to make a decision. I was talking to my doctors, because no doctor can legally tell me like I could not get pregnant, but every single one of them advised me not to do it. You are either going to have a worse outcome. It could be fatal. You don't know. And my husband was like, I don't want to risk that. And then like, I'm stuck with children on my own, raising these kids. And, you know, because you just have to think about big picture, unfortunately. And it's really scary. And it was scary for him, what he had to go through too, my whole family, you know? And anyways, my doctor was the one that said, have you ever heard of gestational surrogacy? And at that time, like I've heard of surrogacy, but I've never heard of gestational. And I was just starting to look into it, because they're like, you could have a biological genetic child that is yours 100%. And so I went and met with the fertility doctor, and she was like, let's see how you stim with IVF meds. And that kind of was like how I was going to make my decision. Cause it's like, you never really know how your body's even going to react to that. You could get on IVF and not even get anything. And so I ended up getting 42 eggs.
God bless you. Look at you.
And I got
a little farm there.
No, literally. And then I got 9 healthy embryos.
Unbelievable.
Like, what in the actual? So it was just crazy. But in that whole process of doing that, the IVF was that's what's going to make our decision.
Okay.
So, and then I started the whole process of like researching everything and like looking for a surrogate and
then everything. You came across Robin,
and I came across Robin. I reached out to her. We ended up having these amazing conversations. I meet her. I fly out to Utah, and you know, we kind of make this commitment to each other, and you know, fast forward, and we like go through the egg retrievals. We go through like making the embryos. We go through our transfer dates. Like and this is like such an intricate process, this whole thing, like the appointments, the schedules, the meds, all these things. We get our transfer date for our embryo. I touched down back in Arizona. I'm at like Sky Harbor Airport, and she calls me in the emergency room with ovarian torsion, and she has to have a hysterectomy.
Oh my God.
My knees legit buckled. And my mom could see it in my face. My mom flew out there with me, and I was like, she can't be, that means immediately she cannot no longer be a carrier. I mean, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Cause like, you know, at this point we are months into everything, financially so invested, all this stuff. And it was very devastating because I was like, how am I supposed to even start over? How do you know what I mean? You just feel very lost and terrified. And I get a call from Robin a couple of days later. She's like, I'm going to find someone for you. And I was just like, okay, you know what I mean? I'm just like, thanks. Anyways, but I get a call and she was just like, and it was Triest. And she was like, I know we don't know each other, but she's like, I want to step up and I would love to do this for you. And now, you know, when you look back, Robin was just our connector piece to get to her. And, you know, it was pretty unbelievable, the whole process, honestly.
Holy smoke. So Triest, when Robin called you and was like, hey, boo, I need a favor.
You know what you said when you're into it? Are you sure?
Remember that grocery store conversation that we had after not seeing each other for 800,000 years? I have some embryos flying in. Do you want to slap those in quick?
Literally sliding into DMs is a whole nother thing now, right? Like for real.
Holy smoke. So Triest, when Robin called you, and I'm not speechless as a human typically, but what the heck was that about? How did that go?
So I love being able to just look back on all the little
my
details.
gosh, same.
Because I need to step back for a second, because Robin had not mentioned a word to me about Jen, Brett, like nothing. And all of a sudden I open Instagram and there's a picture of Robin standing between Jen and Brett saying, it's happening again. I'm carrying again. And I had this overwhelming feeling. I'm not a jealous person. Like, I'm not a jealous person. I had seeing that picture, I remember, like, I felt the blood drain from my face, because without even,
she's mine.
I had this
That's so funny
thought come through my brain. You know, like when you're at the beach and there's those planes that fly by with the banner behind them? Okay, that's what happened in my brain. And this banner said, that should be me. Standing between Brett and Jen. And I was I had like the angel and the devil was like, that should be you. And the angel's like, shut up. You need to be happy for Robin and for Jen and for Brett, whoever these people are. Okay, fast forward. Robin and I have the same OB.
Okay.
At the time, we had the same OB. And so I think this all happened, was it a Friday, Jen? That
when I flew out?
Or did you fly out on Thursday?
I flew out on Thursday.
Okay, you flew out on Thursday. I talked to Robin on Friday, and she and I, you know, she just said, I just need to let you know this is what's happening. And our doctor said that I can't carry anymore because
well, she had to have a hysterectomy.
Yeah.
So that was like hard for her too. She was like, not only that, but like she had to kind of like mourn her own loss, you know?
Yeah.
It was so much.
Even though she was done, she was just like, you know, this is still a loss. And she was like, I am beside myself because Brett and Jen, I remember specifically asking her, do they have to completely start over?
Yeah.
And she said, they're starting from scratch.
And I mean, because we even had our legal contract done with our lawyers. Like it was like ready. Like we had it was like ready to go, you know? Ugh.
And so she and I, Saturday morning, she and I met up for for breakfast, whatever time of day it was. And so we're sitting in this restaurant, having breakfast, and she's filling me in on everything, how she's doing. And in this very long sit down, there was a fraction of it that was me saying, if they want to talk to me, I would be more than willing. In the meantime, I had been to the fertility center. I had an interview with a Chinese couple, and I could tell that was going to be very transactional. They lived in China. They were in Utah because they wanted to use this doctor. They wanted to go through the Utah Fertility Center. There was no connection. It was very, I don't want to say it was cold, but it was a business meeting. And I was like, this is not why I'm here. Everybody's like, oh, that must be like, that's like a, having a second job. Yeah. And I was like, I mean, maybe in California or, New York or something, I've heard of people that make lots and lots and lots of money. And I was just like, that's not what I'm doing.
Well, and some people do, they're built that way where they can't handle an emotional relationship. Correct. They have to keep it
transactional.
So
it's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Very true.
It is. Yeah.
And they're the ones and they are perfect for those intended parents who would rather just almost like closed adoption versus open adoption.
Correct.
And in a sense. And I just knew I couldn't do that. And so as I'm talking to Robin, and I said, if they want to talk to me, I would be willing to talk to them. This is Saturday morning. She's like, okay, well, I'll mention it. She's like, I know it's so fresh. We're all heartbroken. And I just said, I can't even imagine. And we continued on with other conversation, and that was just a little blip in our breakfast together that Saturday morning. Fast forward to Sunday evening, and we were visiting with some family, and I had my very first conversation with Jen, and I stepped out and
because Robin texted me. She was just like, or called me, and she's like, hey, I think I have someone for you if you're willing to talk to her. And she like gave me a little bit of a background, and she was like, she's a dear friend, and and I was just like, okay, I was still kind of like, I don't know, I was like, sure, but like we ended up
still so raw. It was so still raw. Such a
yeah. But I was like, yeah, I'll talk to her. Of course I will.
Aww.
So that Sunday evening, as I'm literally walking around this little community where my husband's family, his aunt lived, we talked for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And my husband knew he knew what was going on. He kind of thought it was a phase. He's like, no, she'll just, she'll get through it. We'll just work through this one, And so after the conversation, it was like this, I was so happy. It was like my heart was just full. And it was just a conversation with a woman that I've never met, and that has just in the last like 72 hours gone through some really traumatic stuff, and here I just pop in like, hi, how you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, I know. And so we clicked.
Yeah, we did.
It was like, and I think that's part of why my heart was just so happy, because I was like, this is the kind of person that I want in my life. Yeah. Someone who I just felt like from the get-go, we were very open and honest, but like Peter Pan and his shadow kind of thing, just I just loved her from the very beginning. And so they said, well, let us talk about it. We just want to obviously talk things over. Yeah. So can we call you back tomorrow? And so tomorrow being Monday, this was 4 days after Jen, her knees buckled in the airport because Robin was like, I can't do this. They called me back, and I don't remember. You might have to fill in some cracks, Jen.
I was literally just like, I just was like, I'm in if you're in. It was literally like that. And I was like, I'm coming out to Utah.
That's all I remember from the conversation was just saying we talked about it, and we're in if you're in. And I was like, I am in.
Yeah.
And then my husband was like,
wait, what?
Hold on. Wait, huh?
Wait.
Oh God. I can't even imagine. And so Triest, how old were your kids at that time?
That was in 2015, right, Jen?
Yeah.
That was 2015. So I had a 1-year-old. He just turned 1. And then a 3.5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Wow.
And my husband was, busy with his job, and we were just in the throes of, some people call it the doldrums of parenthood, because it's a mundane day to day, got little kids, and then all of a sudden this was happening. And that was in August of 2015. Was it July, August of 2015?
Yeah.
It's kind of a blur from there.
But I want to say it was July, because our very first transfer was in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now all the embryos were now frozen in Arizona?
No, so once we started the process, like with Robin, she wanted to keep everything in Utah.
Good.
And also, with all of the layers of surrogacy, not every state has laws to protect intended parents. And unfortunately, Arizona is one of those states. And so I was already looking elsewhere. I was researching other states, compensation rates, laws to protect, like all, there's so much that goes into it, which is something that we have a beautiful story, and I am so grateful for it, but there is a lot that goes into this. There is a lot.
Smoke, there is.
And so we did everything through Utah just to make sure, because Utah, it does have gestational surrogacy is legal. We have rights that protect us. And so, and also my carriers had families, and I had a son too, but they had multiple kids, and flying back and forth, that was just not possible. And so we kept everything. We did everything through Utah Fertility. So my embryos were there, which honestly made me feel better too. I didn't want them traveling, you know what I mean? Honestly, it's just so scary. So I was happy to do everything through Utah. So they were all there, ready to go. So our very first, and I honestly, going into this, I just wanted one more child. I just really wanted my son to have a sibling. I just knew my family wasn't done. It just was not done. And so I did not go into this really wanting to have multiples.
Yeah.
Here we are. And what's so funny? Twiniversity was the first page that I ever followed when I found out I was having twins, by the way. It was the first one. And I was just, I'm serious. So, anyway, so I was not expecting to have multiples. So, because we had our first transfer scheduled in October, and it was a picture perfect, the whole thing. Everything was great. Triest lining uterus was perfect clouds, cotton candy. Everything was textbook great. And unfortunately, it did not take.
Yeah. Dr. Folk looked at my husband on transfer day, and he was like, her lining is beautiful. It is like a well-plowed field. And my husband was like, Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you say to that? Oh, okay. Thanks
The
so much.
funny, the compliments that you get when you, in like that world, it's so funny.
Yes.
You're just kind of like, thank you. You know what
Yes.
I mean? But yeah, so that was very
Oh.
devastating as well. So when that transfer did not take, you know, these little embryos, they're 4 weeks gestation when they are transferred. And so, I mean, and I mourned that loss very privately, and it was very devastating for me. We were already we had so many ups and downs. And so, and I just honestly, I feel like I was not expecting it not to work. Like,
Yeah.
I just was like, you know, and so when that did not take, it really knocked me down. And I told my husband, I was like, I'm done. This is it. We tried. I've done everything. I feel like we've gone to the ends of the earth to try to have a family. And you know, anyways, my husband was the one was like, we are not giving up. We have all these embryos, but it was like having that daunting conversation of asking your carrier,
Yeah.
what do you think about carrying two? Like, would you be even willing to like transfer multiple embryos just for the chance of one taking? Like, we
Yes.
just needed to up our chances. I wasn't, you know, and so, but you have to, and that's putting them at risk, and there's all these things, and you have to, and we had to like
And even
have that
putting
conversation.
you could put in multiples and then those could still split. So like
100%.
Yeah, there's
So
also that.
there's a lot on both sides. And so we had that conversation. She had to like think about it, and, you know, and there's of course everything that goes underneath, like contracts change and just everything. It's not just like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, you know, you just there's so much that you have to think about.
Yeah.
So having that conversation, and I think Trieste had a really hard time that it didn't take. Like I know, like you were saying, like you felt the guilty is so bad. Like you just think, cause you know what I mean? It's just, there's so much emotion that goes into this. And it was just devastating, I think, for both of us. And then having to mentally gear up, like going in and doing this again.
Yeah.
It's just a lot, you know?
Trish, can I ask you a question? So you were saying, so you had your two boys and then you lost a boy and then you had your third son. When you were becoming a surrogate, how did the process go with having an infant loss?
That was my biggest question. I wasn't sure if they were going to even allow that, but because I had our little rainbow baby who we got pregnant with him the week that our angel baby was due, and we felt like that was a gift, that was a sign, that was just it, like he's meant to come right now. And they said, you're considered a good risk. That's what they told me. You're considered a good risk because yes, you did lose you lost a baby, but it wasn't because of any kind of pregnancy complications or health issues. It was just it was a total fluke. My water broke in the middle of the night, and he was perfect. He was just too small.
Yeah.
How many weeks were you?
And that was one of the conversations that, you know, the doctor we had privately and that we had with Trieste as well. And you have to, I mean, everything is laid out on the table, like every health, every person, you know, like you have to have very open conversations. And so that was hard. And that was something that my husband and I had to talk about too. It's like, okay, like, you know, because it is scary to think about, but her having a viable, healthy pregnancy baby afterwards, it was very comforting. And and just knowing like that does happen. It does happen. And it's not like something was wrong with her or something. It just, unfortunately, that is part of the show sometimes. And it does happen. And so for me, I was like, I'm like, we are already taking like risks.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that's what they said to me too. They're like, she is a good risk. And I just was like, we're doing it. That was like such a blip for me. Like, yes, we had a conversation about it, but it wasn't something that was like the least of my concerns. So
that's unbelievable.
But it was, we did have to have that conversation,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I've been thinking about that since you said that, Triest. And like, honestly, that's a whole issue onto itself, and you going through that, and then having a rainbow baby, which yes, it's common, but that doesn't mean it's less traumatic,
right?
And it's still scary. How many weeks were you, Triest, when you lost the baby?
I was almost halfway. I was like 18 and a half or something. So he, you know, his name is Sam, and Sam had fingernails and toenails, and he had my jawline, and he just, you know, he was perfect. He was just too small. And I had actually been in contact after I spoke with this Chinese couple. I had been in contact with someone else, a woman who lived in California, and she and I had actually clicked. But she came back and she said, you know, her embryos her eggs were not like super eggs. You know, they needed to find someone where there was zero risk and zero, you know, and just because she was just like, we have a very limited number of embryos, and we need to, in her case, they needed to make sure everything was as perfect as it could have been. And I totally understood that. And though I was never like, you know, it was like, no, I understand. And I know that I'm a risk. But having Luke, that angel baby, Luke was our, I feel like he was like our golden ticket to just be like, hey, you've done this again. Your body is able to do this again. And the whole time I feel like Sam was like this heavenly cheerleader that was just like, keep going, you can do this, you know. And so it was devastating for me. It wasn't considered a miscarriage because there was never it never implanted, it just never took, you know. And so I knew that Jen and Brett needed some time. And we gave each other that space. It wasn't like either one of us was calling the other one every week saying, so have you thought about it? You know, it was very much where we just respected each other's time to grieve and mourn. And I knew that I would do whatever Jen and Brett wanted to do, whether they wanted to just say thank you, but that's it, or if they wanted to go ahead and try again. And I told my husband, I said, there is no doubt in my mind, if they want to do it again, I am there. And Jen, I think it was December, right? When you guys called and you know, we reconnected and you said, we want to try.
Yeah, it was like right after Thanksgiving, because it was like end of Halloween or it was like around Halloween time when we lost the first embryo. And then, I just needed time to like wrap my head around it. And then even financially, physically, mentally process. Because I want to mention this too. It's like, there is so much that has to happen on your end as well. Like to even gear up for a transfer, there's so much that you have to do. And so it's like, you know, just getting that mentally prepared on your end too. It's like, okay, are you really wanting to do this again? And there's just so much that you have to go through to like even do the transfer. And so, but we had to have that daunting conversation of like, yes, we do want to do it again. But like, you know, for us to feel like we have at least a better shot, we need to transfer 2 embryos. And, you know, I mean, you answered pretty quickly, like you thought about it. And I mean, I don't even think it was like a day. I think it was you went home and you're just like, yeah, like, let's do it, So, we were both like, like so scared, like the whole time. We're like, cool, like just so scared. But like, also like, we just both needed to do that. I think even for both of our peace of minds, like knowing that like, okay, like we're doing it, we're going to give it our all,
Wow.
We're not.
And I knew going in, this was this was it. Like if something didn't happen, we talked about it, like this was going to be it for us. And so, yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like when we found out that they both took,
Wow. Okay. So here's what I think we're going to do. I am not editing the story a lot because this is just too good to be true. So what we're going to do is you ladies are going to stay right there. But for those of you that are listening and watching, we're going to pause and we're going to come back with a part 2 to this story because I want to talk about the pregnancy and I don't want to miss anything that we covered already because it's just too, this is what happens. That's real. And I always want people to have the real story. And I know that we could like edit this and I can make that story 10 minutes, but truthfully, there's no way that I'm doing that because your story, as uncommon as it is, the whole ups and downs is very typical.
Yeah,
it's very typical. And everybody has their own version of, certainly not as dramatic as their surrogate needing an emergency hysterectomy. That is pretty significant. But you have people who go through this process and then the surrogate decides to back out.
Yes.
Or the surrogate moves and their family is like, well, we're not doing it anymore. There's too much happening right now. Or we've even had some surrogates that have gotten pregnant organically before a transfer. So, and then you can't transfer because she's already pregnant. So there have been so many surrogate stories that I personally know, but they're not always public domain. Like this is public. I really want to be like, enough. Let's shake this out. This is what happens. It's
like, I think that's so important to us too. It's like, I want to talk about like the good, the bad, the ugly. There's an arc to all of this. It's not just like this, butterflies and rainbows like all the time. Like it's really not. Like there's a lot that happens and it's very serious. It's like very real. And people need to know that for sure.
Amen. All right. So for those of you that are watching, stay tuned because part 2 is coming. And don't forget, if you have any questions about this and you don't get to listen to the second part, if you have any questions for me, Jen, or Triest, you could always email us at community@twiniversity.com or slip into our DMs, i.e. Jen and Robin. But please don't ask me to carry your babies because I can't. I would love to, but that's not in the cards for me. I am off the market as of pretty much my own delivery. And it's interesting because Jen and I, which I don't know like how closely Jen's been following Twiniversity, but Twiniversity was born because I couldn't have more kids.
Oh,
so that is how
100%
Twiniversity
know this.
Yeah, so it had to happen. I also felt that my family was incomplete, and I just, by the time we needed to start thinking about surrogacy or adoption or anything else, we found out that one of my children had a lot of medical issues. And then that kind of took up that space where I thought my extended family would be. But I really, I always had this vision of 6 kids and this kind of little team that I had. Yeah. And I have a lot of envy for people that have the courage to do that, even despite anything that's thrown at them. That's why we are not going to stop this conversation. But until next time, guys, I will see you later, alligators. Jen and Triest say goodbye. I'm pressing stop for a second, but stay tuned for part 2.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.